The bridge of the USS Aegis was silent, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the kind of quiet that comes right before a heavy storm. The air inside the large metal room felt cold and heavy. In the center of the room stood Commander James. He was a tall man with a strong face and dark eyes. He stood perfectly still, looking at the huge screen in front of him. Outside the ship, the stars were bright and still, but James knew that peace was an illusion. He was waiting for the enemy. To his left, a young woman named Lisa sat at the communication desk. Lisa had sharp features and focused eyes. She wore the standard blue uniform of the fleet. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard, but she made no sound. She was listening to signals coming from deep space. Behind James, a man named David sat at the tactical station. David was big and looked very strong. He watched the radar screen closely, looking for any red dots that would mean danger. They were not alone in the galaxy. For the last year, humans had joined a group called the Galactic Coalition. This coalition was made up of many different alien races. They were fighting a war against a very bad empire called the Kryler. The Kryler wanted to take over every planet and destroy everyone who said no. The coalition was losing. They needed help. They asked Earth for ships, and Earth sent them. But the aliens did not think the humans could help. They looked at human ships and laughed. They thought human weapons were too simple. They thought humans were too weak. Standing in the corner of the bridge was an alien named Zelos. He was a liaison, which means he was there to talk between the humans and the coalition. Xylos had green skin and 4 arms. He moved his hands nervously all the time. He did not like being on a human ship. The air smelled different to him, and the humans were too quiet. He thought they were stupid because they did not have advanced energy shields like his people. "Commander James," Xylos said, his voice sounding like a high-pitched beep. "The sensors are clear. We are wasting time. We should go back to the main station. The Kryler are not coming here." James did not turn around. He kept looking at the black space on the screen. "They are coming, Xylos. Be patient." "I have been patient," Xylos said, waving 2 of his arms in the air. "My leaders say you humans are brave, but bravery does not stop plasma beams. You have small ships. You have old technology. If the Kryler come, you will die. We must leave." Lisa turned her head slightly. "Sir, I am picking up a signal. It is very faint." James took a small step forward. "What kind of signal?" "It is a gravity wave, sir," Lisa said. "A big one. Something very heavy is coming out of hyperspeed." David at the tactical station looked up. "Commander, I see it too. The radar is turning red, fast." On the big screen, the space in front of the ship began to twist. It looked like water going down a drain. Then, with a flash of purple light, huge ships appeared. They were ugly and dark, covered in sharp spikes and glowing engines. One by one, they came into view. 10 ships. Then 50. Then 100. The screen filled with red enemy markers. Xylos made a loud screaming noise and fell back against the wall. "No, it is the Kryler Vanguard. That is 300 ships. We are done. We must run." James did not move. His face did not show fear. He looked at the enemy fleet with calm eyes. He saw the huge size of their ships. He saw the power of their weapons. But he also saw that they were grouped too close together. "David," James said, his voice very low and calm. "Count the ships." 312 capital ships, sir," David said. His voice was not shaking. "Thousands of small fighters, too," Lisa turned to James. "The coalition fleet is 2 sectors away. They cannot help us, sir. We are alone." Xylos was running around the bridge in a panic. "Evasive maneuvers. Turn the ship around. Go to light speed. They will fire in seconds. Their plasma will melt our hull." "Silence," James said. He did not shout, but his voice was hard. Xylos stopped moving. He looked at James with wide eyes. "You are crazy. You will get us all killed." James pressed a button on his chair. "All ships," he said, speaking to the whole human fleet. "This is Commander James," Do not run. Do not hide. Hold your position. Prepare main guns. Target the center of their formation. The crew on the bridge moved with perfect speed. They did not panic. They trained for this every day. They knew what their ship could do. David typed commands into his computer. The power levels on the ship went up. The engines hummed louder. Outside, the enemy fleet saw the small human ships. The Kryler commander laughed. He saw only 50 small silver ships against his massive army. He ordered his ships to fire. The front line of Kryler ships began to glow green. They were charging their main weapons. Xylos closed his 4 eyes. It is over, he whispered. James looked at the tactical map. The enemy was moving into a perfect line. They were making a mistake. They thought the humans were weak. They thought the humans would run. By staying still, the humans had tricked the enemy into coming close together. Lisa, James said. Open a channel to the enemy. Channel open, sir. This is Commander James of the human fleet, James said. His voice went over the radio to the enemy ships. You are entering a restricted zone? Turn back now, or you will be destroyed. The answer came back instantly. It was a harsh, laughing voice. Human, your bones will be dust in 5 minutes. Your fire is too small to burn us. James cut the connection. He looked at his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for the order. They were ready. David, James said. Are the targets locked? Locked, sir, David replied. The computer has the solution. We can hit them all at once. Good, James said. He leaned forward in his chair. Let us show them what humans can do. The green glow on the enemy ships got brighter. They were about to fire. The bridge was quiet again. Xylos was shaking his head. He could not watch, but James watched. He watched the screen, waiting for the exact second to strike. The enemy thought they were the hunters. They did not know that in the deep, dark space, the humans were the best hunters of all. James took a deep breath. The time was close. He waited 1 more second. The silence of the bridge was the loudest thing in the universe. The bridge of the USS Aegis was bathed in a soft, red light as the warning signals continued to flash. On the main screen, the massive Kryler fleet continued its advance. The alien ships were dark and jagged, looking like knives made of black iron. They moved closer together, forming a tight wall of metal and energy. The Kryler commander wanted to crush the human ships in one single blow. He thought that 50 small human ships were nothing compared to his grand army of 300 Xylos. The alien liaison was now making a high-pitched humming sound. His 4 arms were flailing wildly, hitting the side of his chair. Commander James, he cried out. You must move. The energy readings from their weapons are critical. They are going to fire a combined beam. It will destroy this entire fleet in one shot. Please turn the ship around. James stood still in the center of the chaos. His hands were clasped behind his back. He watched the tactical display on the screen. He saw the red dots of the enemy ships merging into a single, terrifying line. The Kryler were arrogant. They were confident. They were bringing their ships so close together that they were touching each other's shields. To James, this was not a show of strength. It was a mistake. It was a target waiting to be hit. Hold position, James said again. His voice was flat and boring, as if he was ordering lunch instead of facing death. David, at the tactical station, looked up. Sir, their weapons are fully charged. They will fire in 3 seconds. Our shields are at 100%, but those beams are designed to melt planets. I am not sure our deflectors can hold that much heat. They don't have to hold it, James said calmly. Lisa turned from her communications desk. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady on the keys. Sir, the rest of the human fleet is reporting ready. All captains are waiting for your command. They are asking if we should evade. Evasion is for prey, James said. We are not prey today. Tell them to activate the magnetic field generators. Do not fire back yet. Just wait. Xylos put his head in his hands. Madness, he whispered. Absolute madness. The coalition will hear of this. They will know that humans are suicidal. Outside the ship, the Kryler fleet reached the point of no return. The huge cannons on the front of the alien ships glowed with a blinding green light. The energy built up until it could not be contained. Then, with a silent flash that blinded the sensors, the Kryler fired. A wall of green plasma, thicker than a mountain range, shot across the void of space. It moved at the speed of light. It hit the human fleet. On the bridge, the lights flickered. The ship shook violently, throwing Xylos out of his chair. He hit the floor with a loud thud. "We are hit. We are dying." He screamed, but the ship did not break apart. The green plasma washed over the silver hull of the Aegis like water over a rock. A strange blue bubble surrounded the human ships. It was not a normal energy shield. It was a magnetic field. The plasma, made of charged particles, was caught in the magnetic net. The superhot gas slid around the bubble, deflected to the sides, and harmlessly into the cold void of space. David watched his screens intensely. "Shields holding," he said. "Temperature is rising, but the magnetic field is redirecting the energy. They are using heat weapons against us. Bad choice." James watched the main screen. The enemy was still firing, pouring all their power into an attack that was failing. The human ships were not firing back. They just sat there, taking the hit, drifting in the blue glow of their own magnetic shields. "They will wonder why we are not shooting back," James said. "They will think their weapons are working. They will keep their ships close to maintain the barrage." "But sir, our magnetic fields can only last for so long," Lisa said. "The generators are overheating." "We only need a few more seconds," James said. He looked down at the floor where Xylos was trembling. "Get up, Xylos, watch closely. You are about to see why humans fight with metal, not just light." Xylos slowly lifted his head. He looked at the screen. The green light was fading. The Kryler were stopping their fire. They were confused. Their sensors told them the human ships should be dust, but the silver ships were still there, untouched. The Kryler formation was holding, waiting to see the result of their attack. "They failed," David said. "Enemy weapons are cooling down. Their shields are down because they used all their power to fire." James nodded. A small smile appeared on his face. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a worker who is about to start a long shift. "Now," James said, "now we show them the difference between toys and tools." He touched a button on his chair. "All ships, switch to kinetic battery mode, load the tungsten rounds. Target the center of the enemy formation. Do not aim for the ships. Aim for the space between them." "Aim for the space?" Lisa asked, confused. "Trust me, Lisa," James said. "Physics is on our side." The USS Aegis began to change. The sleek, silver outer plates of the ship shifted. Huge hatches opened along the sides of the human vessels. Long black barrels slid out. They were not lasers. They were not plasma throwers. They were massive railguns. They were simple, brutal, and old technology, but built on a massive scale. Xylos stared at the screen. "What are those?" he asked. "Those look like primitive projectile weapons. My son plays with toys like those. You cannot hurt us with solid metal. Our armor is too strong." "Metal beats energy, Xylos," James said. "Always has, always will." The railguns began to spin. They charged up with a low hum that vibrated through the floor of the bridge. The magnetic fields inside the barrels reached maximum power. The air crackled with static electricity. The human fleet, which had been so quiet and still, suddenly hummed with raw power. "Target locked," David said. "Firing solution ready." The Kryler fleet, seeing the guns come out, hesitated. They did not know what these weapons were. They prepared to fire their lasers again, but they were too slow. They were still recharging from the first shot. They were open. They were exposed. James looked at the main screen. He saw the enemy ships clustered together in their arrogance. He saw the fear of his own crew turning into focus. He knew that in a few seconds the war would change. "Fire," James ordered. The sound on the bridge was not like a normal explosion. It was a deep, gut-wrenching thud that shook the bones of everyone on board. It was the sound of the USS Aegis firing her main guns. When the railguns released their power, the entire ship pushed backward, fighting against the sheer force of the projectiles, leaving the barrels dot in the darkness of space. There was no sound to hear, but the visual display was terrifying. From the side of every human ship, long streaks of bright orange fire shot out. These were the tungsten rounds. They were not glowing because they were on fire. They were glowing because of the friction with the air inside the barrel and the sheer speed at which they were traveling. They left the ships at 10% of the speed of light. At that speed, a simple piece of metal becomes more destructive than a nuclear bomb. Xylos was still on the floor, but he lifted his head to look at the main screen. He expected to see lasers or energy pulses. He expected to see bright lights that would splash against enemy shields. Instead, he saw solid lines of light cutting through the dark void. They looked like invisible needles being thrown by a god. "They are firing solid metal," Xylos screamed, his voice cracking. "That is primitive. That is stupid. It will just bounce off the Kryler hulls." James watched the tactical map with intense focus. The math was simple in his head. Speed equals mass times energy. The enemy shields were designed to stop energy beams and slow-moving missiles. They were not designed to stop a chunk of metal the size of a car moving at 30,000 kilometers per second. The first wave of human rounds reached the enemy fleet. The Kryler ships had their shields up. A beautiful purple energy bubble surrounded the massive alien dreadnoughts. But as the tungsten rounds hit the shields did not stop them. The rounds punched through the energy fields like a bullet through a fog. The energy fields rippled and shattered, unable to deflect the physical mass. The solid rods of metal slammed into the front of the Kryler ships. There were no fireballs at first. At such high speeds, the metal rounds didn't just explode, they liquefied upon impact. The kinetic energy was turned into heat instantly. The first enemy ship, a massive dreadnought the size of a city, simply ceased to exist where it was hit. The round entered the front hull and passed through the entire ship, exiting the back. As it traveled through the ship, it tore everything apart. The air inside the ship turned to plasma. The metal of the ship melted. The ship didn't just break. It turned into a cloud of expanding debris and gas. "One hit," David said, his voice sounding amazed. "Dreadnought 1 is destroyed." But the rounds did not stop. They had so much momentum that they kept going. A single round from the Aegis pierced through the lead ship and continued flying into the ship behind it. Then it hit a third ship. In less than a second, one bullet killed 3 enemies. The other human ships were firing too. The space between the fleets suddenly filled with thousands of these invisible projectiles. It looked like a rain of death. Invisible to the naked eye but devastating on the radar. On the screen, the Kryler formation began to crumble. Ships that were flying close together were being sliced apart. A round would hit a ship's engine, causing it to explode. The explosion would hit the ship next to it. The type formation that the Kryler commander had chosen was now their tomb. They were trapped in a box with nowhere to run. Lisa stared at her screen. The numbers were changing too fast to count. "Sir, enemy hull integrity is dropping by 80%. They aren't even firing back. Their weapon systems are being destroyed before they can recharge." James did not look away. "Keep firing. Don't let them breathe." Xylos stood up slowly. He walked to the screen, his mouth open. He saw the destruction. He saw ships that had terrorized the galaxy for 100 years turning into dust. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" "The shields, the armor." "Physics, Xylos," James said. "You rely on fancy energy fields. We rely on throwing heavy things very fast. Your shields stop heat and light. They do not stop a rock thrown by a giant." The view on the main screen was chaotic. Debris from the destroyed Kryler ships was flying everywhere. Huge chunks of metal, once part of a mighty engine, were now crashing into other ships. The human rounds were creating a chain reaction. The Kryler fleet was panicking. Some ships tried to turn around, but they were too slow. The human railguns had a range that the aliens could not match. Even as they tried to run, the rounds chased them down. A Kryler cruiser tried to jump to hyperspace to escape. It charged its engines, but just before it vanished, a tungsten round hit its main reactor. The ship warped and twisted in a strange way, torn apart by the conflicting forces of the engine and the impact. It vanished in a flash of light that left a scar on space. "Enemy communication channels are full of screaming," Lisa said. She looked a little pale. "They are terrified. They don't know what is hitting them. They are seeing a monster they didn't know existed," James said. "They thought they were the apex predators? Today they learned they are just prey." The barrage lasted for exactly 10 seconds. The human ships fired their rounds in a rhythmic pattern, a constant drumbeat of destruction. Then, as suddenly as it started, the firing stopped. The Aegis ceased its shaking. The orange glow from the barrels faded away. Silence returned to the bridge. But the silence was different now. It was the silence of a graveyard. David looked at his sensors. "All enemy ships have stopped moving," he reported. "The majority are destroyed. The remaining ones are drifting without power or atmosphere." James finally took a breath. He smoothed down his uniform. "Damage report?" "Minimal, sir," David said. "The magnetic fields took a heavy load, but the hull is intact. We have some scorched paint, but that is it." Xylos was shaking his head over and over. He walked to the window and looked out into space. Where there used to be a wall of enemy ships, there was now just a floating cloud of dust and twisted metal. The stars were visible again, shining through the wreckage of the Kryler Empire. The battle was over. It had taken less than a minute. "You killed them all," Xylos said, his voice barely a whisper. "You killed 300 ships in seconds." James walked over to the alien. He looked down at him with a serious expression. "We told you to have faith, Xylos. We are not weak. We are humans. And when we go to war, we do not play games." The silence that followed the battle was heavy and deep. On the bridge of the USS Aegis, the low hum of the engines was the only sound that broke the quiet. The red warning lights had turned off, replaced by the soft white glow of the standard running lights. The air still smelled faintly of ozone. The sharp scent left behind by the massive discharge of the railguns. David sat at his station, staring intently at his screens. His fingers moved across the keyboard, checking and rechecking the data. He could not believe what the sensors were telling him. He was a soldier and he had seen combat before, but he had never seen anything like this. It was not a battle. It was an execution. "Report," James said. His voice was calm, cutting through the silence like a knife. He stood in the center of the room, looking perfectly neat. His uniform was not wrinkled and his hands were steady. It was as if he had just finished a meeting rather than destroyed an entire fleet. David cleared his throat. "Sir, the scan is complete. Out of the 312 enemy ships detected, none are operational." He paused for a moment, letting the numbers sink in. 300 are completely destroyed. They have been broken into small pieces. 12 are drifting, but they are breaking apart. Their life support is gone? Lisa turned from her station. "I am not picking up any escape pods, sir." The destruction was too fast. They didn't have time to launch. James nodded slowly. "It is unfortunate. But they came here to destroy our home. They did not care about mercy. We cannot show weakness to the rest of the galaxy." Xylos, the alien liaison, was still standing near the large view screen. He had not moved from his spot. His forearms hung limply at his sides. He looked out at the space where the mighty Kryler fleet used to be. Now there was only a cloud of debris. Twisted metal, melted engines, and frozen gases floated in the dark. It was a graveyard of scrap iron. The alien turned around slowly. His face, which usually had a greenish color, looked pale and gray. He looked at James with a mix of fear and awe. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. He had to swallow hard before he could find his voice. You killed them all?" Xylos stammered. Just like that? No long fight. No dancing of ships, just one push of a button. One volley, James corrected him. We used simple math, Xylos. They brought shields to stop energy. We brought metal to break things. But the Kryler, Xylos continued, his voice shaking. They have ruled this sector for 1,000 years. They have destroyed worlds. My people, the Coalition. We have been fighting them for decades. We have lost thousands of ships. We lost whole fleets just to push them back a few light years. And you destroyed them in seconds, with small ships. Our ships are not small, James said. They are efficient. We do not waste space on decorations or comfort. We use space for engines and guns. James walked over to the tactical map. It showed the sector, which was now clear of red enemy dots. The only green dots were the human ships. He pointed to the screen. Look at this, Xylos. The Coalition fights with fear. You are afraid of their beams. You are afraid of their shields. Because you are afraid, you hesitate. Humans do not hesitate when we are cornered. Xylos walked closer to the screen. He looked at the destruction with sad eyes. The Coalition will not believe this, he said. They will think it is a trick. They will think you used a super weapon that is banned by the galactic laws. It is not a super weapon, Lisa said, joining the conversation. She sounded a little defensive. It is just a very big gun. We use magnets to throw metal. It is technology that humans have had for hundreds of years. We just made it bigger. Too big, Xylos whispered. It is too dangerous. If the other races see this, they will fear Earth. They will fear you more than they fear the Kryler. Good, James said sharply. He turned and looked Xylos in the eye. Let them fear. Fear is the only thing that stops wars. The Kryler did not fear you, so they attacked you. They did not fear us until today. Now they know. Suddenly, the communication console beeped loudly. Lisa looked down. Sir, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from the Coalition flagship. They are jumping into the system right now. James raised an eyebrow. They are late, as usual. Put them on the screen. The main view flickered and changed. Instead of the field of debris, the face of an alien admiral appeared. He was a large creature with blue skin and tentacles around his mouth. His name was Admiral Valos. He looked panicked. His eyes were wide and he was breathing heavily. Human fleet. Valos shouted. Do you read me? We detected massive energy spikes. We are scanning the sector. Wait. The Admiral stopped talking. He was looking at a screen on his own ship. He saw the sensor data. He saw that there were no Kryler ships left. Admiral Valos, James said in a polite voice. This is Commander James of the USS Aegis. We welcome you. Valos looked back at James, his mouth hanging open. James, what happened here? Our sensors say there are 300 disabled signatures. Where is the Kryler Vanguard? The Kryler Vanguard is gone, Admiral, James said. We destroyed them. You destroyed them? Valos asked. But how? There were so many. Our intelligence said they would destroy anything in their path. They tried, James said. They failed. Valos was silent for a long time. He looked at James as if he was seeing a ghost. We are sending rescue ships to scan for survivors, Valos said slowly. But I see very little life signs. There are no survivors, James said. We do not leave wounded enemies behind to bite us later. Valos shuddered. The alien seemed to shrink in his chair. James, you have changed the war today. The balance of power is shifted. We just leveled the field, Admiral, James replied. Xylos stepped forward, standing next to James so the camera could see him. Admiral Valos, Xylos said. I witnessed it. They did not use magic. They used solid metal. They threw it at the enemy. It was absolute destruction. Valos looked at Xylos, then back at James. The fear in the Admiral's eyes was clear. He realized that the humans were not the weak, primitive allies he thought they were. They were a sleeping giant that had just woken up. "We will discuss this when we meet, Commander," Valos said. His voice was quiet now, lacking the arrogance it had before. "Coalition Command needs to update our files." "Valos out?" The screen went black, returning to the view of the floating debris. James straightened his jacket. "David, set a course for the Coalition rendezvous point. We have a meeting to attend." "Aye, sir," David replied. Lisa looked at James. "Do you think they will be angry, sir?" "They will be scared," James said. "And that is better than being ignored. Come, let's go home." The USS Aegis moved smoothly through the emptiness of space, leaving the broken remains of the Kryler fleet behind them. The silver hull of the ship glinted softly in the light of the distant stars. Inside the ship, the mood was calm, but there was a new feeling in the air. It was a feeling of power. The crew walked with their heads a little higher. They knew they had done something that no one else in the galaxy could do. James stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by as they traveled to the Coalition space station. This station was a huge, spinning wheel in space where all the different alien races met to talk and plan. It was called the Unity Station. For a long time, humans were ignored there. The other aliens looked down on them, treating them like children who did not understand how the galaxy worked. But James knew that things would be different now. Xylo sat in his chair looking out the window. He had been very quiet since the battle. He was thinking about his family, his friends, and the long war his people had fought. He felt a strange mix of relief and fear. He was happy that the Kryler fleet was gone, but he was scared of what the humans could do. "Commander," Lisa said from her desk, "we are receiving a message from Unity Station. They are asking for our visual feed. They want to talk to you before we dock." "Put it on the screen," James ordered. The main screen flickered. A round, purple alien with 3 eyes appeared. It was Counselor Merv. He was the leader of the Galactic Coalition. Usually Merv looked bored and impatient when talking to humans. Today, he looked nervous. His 3 eyes were blinking rapidly. "Commander James," Merv said. His voice was stiff. "We have received the report from Admiral Valos. The data is difficult to process." "We just did our job, Counselor," James said politely. "We cleared the war zone." Merv leaned closer to the camera. "You did more than clear it. You obliterated it. Our scientists are looking at the sensor logs. They say you use kinetic weapons? Solid metal slugs?" "That is correct," James said. "We call them railguns. But that technology is ancient," Merv said, waving a small hand. "We stopped using projectiles thousands of years ago. They are too slow. They are easily stopped by shields." "Your shields stop energy and slow objects," James explained. "They do not stop mass moving at 10% of light speed. We found that throwing a rock very hard is better than throwing a laser that just warms the enemy's paint." Merv looked uncomfortable. "This changes our understanding of warfare, Commander. The Coalition relies on energy shields. If humans can shoot through them, we can shoot through anyone's shields, Counselor," James said. He did not say it as a threat, just as a fact. There was a long silence on the line. The Counselor seemed to be thinking very hard. He realized that the balance of power had flipped. The humans, who were supposed to be the weak little helpers, were now the strongest species in the room. "We will need to discuss this further when you arrive," Merv said finally. "Please dock at Bay 4. We are preparing a welcome committee." Merv ended the call. David turned around in his chair. "A welcome committee? They never gave us that before. Usually they just tell us where to park our cargo ships." "Things change, David," James said. "People respect strength. They did not respect us before. Now they do." The Aegis approached the huge space station. It was a beautiful structure made of glass and shiny metal. Ships from all over the galaxy were flying around it. As the human ship got closer, James noticed something strange. The other ships were moving out of the way. They were giving the Aegis a lot of space. It was like parting the sea. No one wanted to be near the human ship the Aegis glided into. Bay 4, it landed gently on the metal floor of the docking bay. The heavy locks clamped onto the ship, holding it tight. The hiss of air pressure filled the air as the ship connected to the station. "Prepare to disembark," James said to his crew. "Lisa, David, come with me. Xylos, you should come too. You are our witness." Xylos stood up. He straightened his uniform. "I will come, Commander. But I am afraid my people will not know how to act around you anymore. They will act the same way everyone acts when they meet someone stronger than them," James said. "They will be very polite." James walked down the ramp of the ship, followed by his crew. The docking bay was huge. Usually it was full of workers loading cargo and shouting orders. Today it was silent. Hundreds of aliens were standing there, watching them. There were blue-skinned tall aliens, short furry aliens, and insect-like creatures. They were all silent. They stared at the humans as they walked down the ramp. At the bottom of the ramp, Admiral Valos and Counselor Merv were waiting. Valos looked tired. He looked at the human crew with wide eyes. "Commander James," Valos said. He hesitated, then he bowed his head slightly. It was a sign of deep respect. "Welcome back." James nodded. "Admiral, Counselor." Counselor Merv stepped forward. "Commander, we have reviewed the battle data. We have never seen such efficiency. The Kryler have been a plague on our galaxy for centuries. You ended them in seconds." "We did what was necessary," James said. "We want to understand," Merv continued. "Our scientists are confused. How did you generate that much power? How did you aim so perfectly?" James smiled a little. "It is not about the power, Counselor. It is about the mindset. You fight to disable. You fight to capture. You play by rules of engagement that the Kryler do not follow. Humans do not fight like that." "What do you mean?" Merv asked. James looked around the room at all the aliens. He spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "When humans fight, we do not fight for honor. We do not fight for points. We fight to survive. We use everything we have. We use simple physics. We use heavy metal. We do not stop until the threat is gone forever. You were trying to win a chess game. We were just trying to knock the board over." The aliens in the room looked at each other. They whispered among themselves. The idea of total war was scary to them. But they also knew that because of this total war, they were safe today. "The Kryler are retreating from the border," Valos said. "They heard what happened here. They are terrified of the human metal rain. You have won the war without invading their territory." "They know now," James said. "They know that if they come back, we will be waiting. And next time, we will bring bigger guns." Merv took a deep breath. "Commander James, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I would like to offer you a new position. We want to place the human fleet in charge of the defense perimeter. We want you to be the guardians of the core systems." It was a huge offer. It meant the humans were now the leaders of the military. It meant trust, but it also meant fear. They wanted the scary monsters on their leash. James looked at his crew. Lisa and David smiled at him. They knew this was a big moment for Earth. "We accept," James said. "But on one condition." "Name it," Merv said quickly. "You stop treating us like children," James said. "We are not your junior partners. We are equals. If we are going to protect you, you listen to us." Merv paused, then nodded. "Agreed, you are equals. The humans are now the senior members of the Coalition Defense Council." James extended his hand. Merv looked at the hand, not understanding the gesture at first. Then the alien reached out and shook it. It was a deal made. "Come," Valos said. "We have much to plan. And I think I want to learn more about these railguns." James turned and walked with the aliens toward the main hall. His crew followed behind him. As they walked, James looked up at the ceiling of the station. He thought about Earth. He thought about the simple engineers back home who built those guns. They just wanted to mine asteroids and move rocks. But now, those rocks were the kings of the galaxy. The war was over. The peace was starting. But James knew that the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. They were no longer the strange, weak creatures from the small blue planet. They were the storm. And they were here to stay.